Hi there, Nigel Saunders here. I've already planted a very Canadian style bonsai forest. It's nice to have a mix of different style trees in your collection. But living in Canada here, I like to have some very Canadian bonsai trees. To find the inspiration for today's bonsai work, we have to travel 18 hours north of here. If I travel 18 hours north of here, I'll find myself on the northern shore of Lake Superior in a city called Thunder Bay. As a child, I spent an entire summer up in Thunder Bay one year, and it's probably where I developed my love for trees. I'll put the Avatar Grove back on the bench, and I'll get out the tree for today's work here in the Bonsai Zone. Today I'll be working on a lonely pine growing on the shores of Lake Superior. It's only been a year since I planted this pine over top of this limestone rock. If we look at the top of the tree, you can see the candles have grown really long, which indicates the tree is really healthy and growing strongly. In this video, I'll be styling the tree and I'll be transferring the planting from this pot into this mica landscape pot and adding a shoreline to the planting. I'll be creating a land and water penjing with this tree. This is the cliff face of the rock, so this will be the water side, and over here will be the land side. With this as the water side of the penjing, I want my tree to look windswept, like the winds are coming in from the lake and blowing it this direction. I'm going to style this tree without using any wiring, just pruning techniques. The main trunk line of this tree comes up and divides into two major branches, but there's a third one out the back here that needs to be removed. I'll spin the tree around and I'll remove that branch that's jutting out here. Just like that. There is one branch on the canopy that's developing a cone. You can see it right here. There's a close-up of the cone, but I will have to pinch it off. I want to keep my branches nice and compact. The next step for this tree will be to pinch off the new growth to keep it nice and compact so it doesn't grow really wild. I'll just come in and pinch them off to the thickness of my fingers, just like that. There's a small one here I won't touch. There's another smaller one here and I'll just take the tip off. Here goes the one with the cone. If you don't pinch back this new growth, your tree will get a very large canopy quite quickly. They'll gain a lot of vigor. So this keeps them compact and to shape. This candle pinching kind of balances the vigor of the trees, so the long shoots get pinched back more and the ones that are just developing hardly get pinched at all. So it kind of balances the vigor in the top of the tree. So here's a look at the crown of the tree with the candles pruned. The next job, I'm going to remove all the needles that are facing downwards to clean up the underside structure of the tree. The needles that are facing downwards don't get a lot of light. So by cleaning out those downward facing needles, it gives more light to the inner structure of the branches and encourages back budding. I like to cut off my lower needles like that rather than pulling them off. If you pull the needles off, you could pull off a bud that's forming. So I'd rather be safe and just prune away the lower needles and keep all my buds intact. I've got all the lower needles removed now. My next task is to go in and select buds. I always want one branch dividing into two and then two into four. and so on. I don't want one branch dividing into 3. So I'm going to go in and clean up the structure. So I always have one branch dividing into 2. Here's an example. This branch comes up and it has one bud here, one here, and one here. So it's one branch that has 3 new shoots coming off of it. So I'm going to prune one of them off, and I'm going to prune the center one and keep my side branches. So I'll just remove that shoot entirely. So now my one branch divides into 2. If I have it dividing into 3, you'll get a bulge in that area. So it keeps your branch lines really clean, keeps your taper nice, and it doesn't look cluttered either. This branch comes out, and I've got 2 branches growing from almost the exact same point. So I'm going to keep this one because it has further divisions out further on the branch. So I'm going to remove this shoot, or this branch entirely. That's gone. So this branch comes out and it divides into 2 here, and then further on it has another 2 divisions. So I could shorten that branch back to these subdivisions, which I think I'll do. I'll try and keep my branch as compact as possible. I do have a bud that's coming out from the bottom here. I'm going to keep that as my branch leader, so I'm going to take it back to here, moving that part of the branch. I have a leader here, so I'm going to remove this one because it interferes with this branch. So I'm going to keep my leader and this branch. And now I have that branch coming out and dividing into 2. Now I do have another branch off here. So it comes from here, divides into 2. This one divides into 2 again. And this one that comes out divides into 2. And then we've got some more further ramification out further here. So we'll keep that. Now I want to look at this branch. I want to clean up some of these needles here so I can see what I'm doing. This branch comes up, divides into 2. 2 again here and 2 again here. So that's fine. I'll leave all these old needles here so it gets more energy. This branch divides into 2, that's fine. That one's good. This one isn't dividing into 2, but it probably will this year. It divides into 2 here, 2 here, and has just 1 shoot here, but that'll probably get a new bud this year. I can just clean up that cut point here, like that. This branch, I have a bit of growth in here that I probably don't need. It's crossing in front of this other branch, so I'm going to prune that off. I have 2 strong divisions here. Yeah, so I'm going to remove this growth that's coming out here. And then I'm coming out, I'll clean up this pruning point. I'm dividing, this branch comes out, divides into 2, and then it divides into 3. So I'm going to remove this upward facing bud here, or branch, like that. So we're dividing into 2, and then 2 again, so that's good. This branch, it just comes out, no divisions yet. This branch comes out, divides into 2. Actually, it divides into 3. There's one on the bottom, so I'm going to get rid of one of them. And I think it's going to be this one shooting straight upwards, so we'll get rid of that one. Like that. This one comes out, divides into 2. That's good. This one divides into 2. And then it divides all over the place. So this branch comes up, it divides into 2, 2 again. This one divides into 2 again. But it's got quite a cluster of needles at the tip here, so I'm going to clean it up. Get rid of this upward facing growth. Picking my best needles to keep, so not that one. And I'm going to get rid of this upward facing one. I could shorten the branch back to these 2 divisions, or I could get rid of those and keep these 2 outer divisions. This has some more subdividing, so it'd be better to keep these branches and get rid of these inner ones. So I'm going to do that. Like that. So that cleans that branch up. This one comes out. There's a little shoot here, and there's one out here, and I don't like this awkward U shape here. It looks really bad. So I'm going to keep this branch on this side and the branch on this side, but I'm going to get rid of this one. Like that. So that looks a little more graceful now. Now this branch has 3 shoots. It has 2 here and 1 on top, so I'm going to get rid of the one growing upwards. So that basically cleans up the structural part of the branches. There's a look now at the upper structure of the tree, what's left of it after the pruning. So there's kind of what it's looking like. There's the front right there, I guess. So it looks quite compact. I think it's going to look good in the future as we prune it using clip and grow rather than wiring it in place. All the steps I've taken so far has removed all these structural flaws of the tree and cleaned it up. But it hasn't taken into account, the design elements of it, which branches we want to keep and which ones we want to remove. So I'm going to study the tree now and see if there's any branches I want to remove from the structure for artistic reasons. You can see from the front view that this branch comes up right in front of these branches. I'll just remove these lower needles here. So it's quite possible I want to remove that branch. Now if I was to wire that tree, I would wire it out of the way, but it would put an unnatural curve into this branch. So I want to keep this tree quite, miniature and realistic looking. So every curve has justification. So I don't really want to wire this tree. I could wire it down here, as a windswept kind of branch. I'm going to try and style this tree just with clip and grow, no wiring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this branch totally. So here I go. Like that. I've got the upper structure cleaned up as much as I can do this year using clip and grow. The trunk has a little bit of an elbow here. This was the original trunk, and I pruned the trunk off at the first branch, which was horizontal, and over the years it's grown more upright to take over as the leader. So this elbow isn't really a desirable feature. I could nibble it away to try and get a smoother transition in this area, or as the tree grows over time, hope that this becomes less noticeable. In the past, I've nibbled away some of these bumps off my larch tree and had really good results. It's healed very quickly, almost within a season, and it gets rid of these sort of bumps on the trunk. So I'm going to try it on this tree. I'm going to come in and I'm going to take a section out of it. Like that. It will leave a scar here, but that'll look natural. It'll look like the tree grew up, had an injury, and a new leader's taken over. So I'm just gonna make this a little bigger. Because I have to allow for the scar tissue that'll build up around this cut point. Like that. So here's the trunk where I nibbled it away. You can see it more clearly in this view. So yeah, it'll roll over. I made it a little thinner than I want it finally. You can see the flat spot there. So as it rolls over, it should blend in eventually someday. Up top I have a similar wound I want to clean up. So I'm just going to come in here and take a little bit off. I think that'll do there. So back to the front view. From the front view, you can see the trunk line flows a lot nicer now without that elbow. I finished all the work to the tree. The next step will be transferring it to its new pot. Before I lift the tree out of the pot, I'm going to try and determine the position of the tree in the new pot, where to position it left to right. I do want to have a shoreline in this area over here. So this is the cliff side of the hill, and then the land section will be over this side. So I'll probably, I don't want to have too much water section here, or what looks like water. It'll be sand and gravel and stuff. So a bit of a coastline here, but not a lot. It'll be mostly land. So the tree will probably be positioned with the trunk of the tree somewhere about here, I'm guessing. So let's try it out and see how it looks. I'll start by preparing the pot, putting some drainage screens in the bottom and a shallow layer of soil across the bottom of the pot, and then I'll lift the tree out and position it. With my drainage screens in place, I can now add the soil. It's time to lift the tree out of the old pot, which was just a aluminum baking pan that I drilled holes in the bottom, and into the real bonsai pot, the mica pot. I don't know how easy it will be to lift it. I'm going to try and lift the rock, and I know I placed a few rocks in the composition to hold the roots down in place. So it may not be the easiest to lift it out and put it in the new pot, but I'll try. So I'll also try and get my position correct the first time around. So here I go. Not going to be easy. I'm going to try lifting it by the rock. Oh, it doesn't really want to take it all. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Well, I'll lift it up, see what I can do. I may have to reposition the roots and that again, but here we go, lifting it up by the rock. A lot of roots in there. Okay, and let's position it here now. I think maybe about there. It gives me enough room for the coastline. Yeah, so these are all the rocks that were holding the roots in place. Hopefully they've done their job. I think they have. Tree feels a little wiggly on the rock, but not too bad. I'm out front looking at the composition. The tree is sort of tilting. It's kind of on a slant this way. I'm not sure if I like that. I probably want it more vertical, and then the top kind of being wind blown. I'm going to try changing the angle and see if I like that better. So there it is. I think that looks vertical, and I think I do like that better. Yeah, I kind of like that better. I'm going to try adjusting it even a little more. Okay, so that's tilted the other way, and I don't like that as much. I liked it better vertical. So I'll move it back. Yeah, I like that. Now, I think I have enough room to suggest a coastline. Like I said, I don't want too much of the water area. I sort of want it to look like a beach with the tide out, so you won't actually see water. It'll just be suggested. And I have lots of room on the other side for a landscape. The tree is positioned about a third of the way in the pot, which is, design-wise looks really good. And I'm just gonna Check the rotation of the tree. It looks pretty good. Maybe play around with it a bit more. I've moved the composition back in the pot a bit, about as far back as I can reasonably place it. So it gives me a little more room up front for landscape work. I kind of like that. Pleasing composition. So the next job will be to arrange the roots that are all kind of loose there. Make sure they're tight against the rock. If I have to replace stones to hold the roots against the rock, I'll do that. Here's more of a top view showing the planting. It is possible I could make this more of an island too, rather than extending the land part to the edge of the pot. I could have it sort of surrounded by, you know, a beachfront or something. So that's another possibility. So I'm going to start arranging the roots now. I think the roots are all tucked in nicely now, so I can start to bury them with soil. So I'll do that next. I'm going to try that island idea first, so I'll put the soil in, kind of level with the lip of the pot, and see how it looks first. Okay, I'm going to have a look at it now and see if I like it as an island, or to see if I want to build up the land on this side more. So here's a view of the planting as an island. I added a few rocks to the right hand side here, just to extend the island out a bit into the water. I may do the same for the left hand side, kind of putting a few rocks there to widen it a bit. And I'm kind of liking it. I think it really puts the focus on the rock and the tree. I'm trying to imagine it with, you know, more land on that side, and I think it would just make the planting maybe look heavy. Too much land and not enough tree, and it would take the focus away from the rock. So I'm thinking this is probably the way I'm going to go, with the sort of island in the middle of the water. And it looks like a nice rugged kind of coastline too. I've added the rock to the left-hand side here that kind of extends the island a bit. Yeah, I really like that. I think it's looking good. You can see the roots growing down the front of the rock, and that's also kind of nice to have them exposed there. Yeah, I'm liking this. So the next step, right now that's just bonsai soil that kind of represents the beach and the water. My plan is to have a fine gravel near the base of the island, then transition to playground sand to represent the beach, and then to represent the water, I'm going to use a white industrial sand that's used for sandblasting to represent the water. And if I can, I'm going to try and put kind of simulate waves with the white sand. So yeah, maybe, you know, lines of the white sand over top of the playground sand to simulate the shoreline. I'll see how it looks. It's just a theory at the moment. We'll see how it looks in real life. I do have some pea gravel that I'm going to try around the base of the island, so I'll get that and we'll try that out. Here's my bag of pea gravel. So it's just a fine gravel. Different colors. I think it'll look quite good. If I wanted to get really fussy about the color, I could pick out, you know, the colors I didn't want and keep the ones I want, but I think a mixture like that's going to look quite good. So let's try it out. I'll put it along the shoreline here. See how it looks. So I'm just going around the edge of the island with my rocks. I'm sure I'll refine it, you know, as I go. Maybe I've got the rocks piled too high, or I've got my pea gravel in place around the island. So next I'll put my washed playground sand around the pea gravel. Here's a shot of my playground sand, and here's the white industrial sand that I'll be using to simulate the water. Okay, so here I go with the sand. I'm using Elizabeth's spoon to apply it. So I'm just going to trace around the shoreline, following my pea gravel. So I'm kind of bringing it up to the gravel, so when I water it, it'll wash away from the pea gravel. And hopefully will look quite natural. I haven't disturbed the roots in this planting much, so it shouldn't affect the growth of the tree changing pots like this. Okay, I think that's about it with the playground sand. I think next I'll give the planting a watering, and we'll see how the sand blends in with the pea gravel. So it's time for a rainstorm on the shores of Thunder Bay. So here I go. I'm just trying to wash all the sand to kind of expose the pea gravel a bit. Just kind of spread it around so it's nice and level. Okay, I think that's good. My next operation will be to apply the white sand to represent the water. Okay, here I go with the white sand. We'll start at the very far edge here. See how it looks. I've never tried this before, so I don't know. In theory, it seems to make sense in my mind, but maybe in practice it won't look quite so good. I'm just going to remove a bit of this sand here. It's a little high in that area. Put some white sand here. Now I'm going to try and make a wave here, so I don't know if this will work either, but now I'm looking to see if it kind of works. I guess it sort of does. I'm going to try and water it now. I want to see if the waves sort of blend into each other or if they kind of stay put. Like I said, I'm not sure how this will work, but we'll see. Seems to be staying in place. I guess we'll see how it does this year. It seems to be working quite well. So I think that's going to work okay. I'll continue on now with the rest of the water. I'm going to add just a little bit more playground sand to kind of blend the water in a little more, so there's a more of a gradual transition. I'm looking at the island planting now. I think it needs a few more rocks along the coastline. I think I've got, the island and the sand, and there's not much sort of transitional area. So I'm going to add some more pea gravel to the planting. I think that's looking a little better. Just a little more sand now. Okay, I'll give that another watering. That's all the work I'll be doing today on my Thunder Bay shoreline planting. It's time now for today's update. Today's update is my small leaf lime bonsai, and this year it's flowered for the very first time. So up top here you can see all the little flowers. They'll come out as little white flowers, and they're very fragrant. So the ugly tree is slowly turning beautiful. That's all the work today on my Scots Pine Thunder Bay style planting. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me here today in the Bonsai Zone.